Have you ever found yourself scrolling through real estate listings, looking at the price of some tiny condo in the city, and just thinking to yourself, this is insane. There has to be another way. Well, guess what? There is. There are these towns all across Canada where the houses are so cheap, you'd swear it was a typo. So today, we're going to go on a little cross-country road trip to find out if this dream is for real, and more importantly, what it's really going to cost you. All right, let's get into it. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. This isn't some kind of clickbait headline. It's the reality in some corners of the country. We're talking about a world where the biggest barrier to owning a home isn't a crushing, lifelong mortgage. It's just being willing to look where nobody else is. This quote just perfectly sets the stage for the wild ride we're about to go on. And look, this isn't just some abstract idea. This number right here, $90,000, that's the actual median home price in a town called Elliot Lake, Ontario. To put that in perspective, that's literally what you might pay for a concrete parking spot in downtown Toronto or Vancouver. So yeah, the dream of a super cheap house, it's definitely real. But that immediately brings up the million-dollar question, or I guess the $90,000 question. Because there's always a catch, right? There has to be. A price that low doesn't just happen. So what is it? Is it the location, the jobs, the weather? Is everyone there a ghost? Well, spoiler alert, it's a little bit of all of the above. Minus the ghosts. And to really get it, we need to start our journey. Okay, so we're going to kick things off in the rugged north of central Canada. We're talking about towns that were literally built by industry, places where the echoes of a booming past still shape everything about the present. These are towns with a pretty tough history and even tougher winters. So just take a second and look at these numbers. They're just staggering. We're talking about actual, real houses for prices that most of us in bigger cities can't even imagine. You know, Elliot Lake was a huge uranium mining town back in the day, and Capish-Kesing was all about forestry and paper mills. These industries provided good, solid jobs, and that's what built these communities from the ground up. And that right there, that's our first big catch. The very industries that were the lifeblood of these towns, the ones that built them, they're also their biggest weakness. Because when that mine eventually closes, or the mill cuts back production, the economic heart of the entire town can just stop, almost overnight. And this is the key concept you really have to wrap your head around. It's called a boom and bust economy. Basically, it means your town's entire future is tied to the price of some global commodity that you have absolutely zero control over. When the price of gold or lumber is sky high, life is great. But when it crashes, the local job market goes down with it. So here's the reality check. That affordability comes with some pretty serious strings attached. We're talking about winters so brutally cold, like -30 is just a normal Tuesday, that they basically have their own personality. You're isolated, often hours and hours away from the nearest big city. And in some places like Rouyn-Noranda, you've got to deal with some scary environmental legacies, like arsenic emissions from a local smelter. That is a really heavy price to pay for a cheap mortgage. Okay, let's pack up and head west for our next stop. We're going to the prairies. This is a land of endless horizons, where the economy and the weather can swing just as dramatically as the landscape itself. You gotta love this description, right? It just perfectly captures that vast, wide open, and let's be honest, sometimes intimidating feeling of the prairies. It's not just a landscape, it's a state of mind. There's literally nowhere to hide from the wind or the sky. But all that openness, it also brings opportunity. And this chart right here, this shows you the big pro of the prairie bargain. In oil and mining towns like Estevan, Saskatchewan, or Thompson, Manitoba, the median household income is actually way higher than the Canadian average. You can make really good money out here, especially if you get a job in the energy sector. But you have to earn it. And a big part of that price is the weather. The winters in a place like Thompson, Manitoba, are just on another level. We're not talking about a chilly day. We're talking about temperatures that can hit -40 and then just decide to stay there for weeks. It is no joke. And it's not just the soul-crushing cold. In the summer, a town like Estevan, Saskatchewan can feel like an oven baking in +35-degree heat. The swings from one season to the next are absolutely extreme. You're living at the mercy of the elements in a way that most Canadians just never have to think about. So here it is, laid out plain and simple. The prairies offer you a real path to getting ahead financially. You get high-paying resource jobs and truly affordable housing. But in return, you have to be okay with the roller coaster of the energy sector. some of the most intense weather in the entire country, and a feeling of being very, very far away from everything else. All right, for our final stop on this tour, we're heading all the way east to the Maritimes. This is a place where the ocean defines life, the communities are famously tight-knit, and the economic struggles, well, they can feel as constant as the tide. Just look at these prices. A house for under 150 grand in a place like Miramichi, New Brunswick, it feels like it shouldn't be possible. You get that beautiful scenery, a much slower pace of life, and incredible affordability. But take a close look at that last column, because that's where the other side of the story is hiding. And wow, this chart really puts it all in perspective, doesn't it? The unemployment rates in these towns are often double the national average. You know, the traditional industries like fishing and forestry have been in decline for a long time, and finding a good, stable job can be a real struggle. So you see, the choice in the Maritimes is a different kind of calculation. It's fundamentally a lifestyle one. You are consciously trading economic opportunity and maybe your career ambitions for incredible natural beauty, a powerful sense of community, and a life without the crushing financial stress of the big city. A lot of people are happy to make that trade, but you have to go in with your eyes wide open. You know, after doing this tour across the country, it starts to become pretty clear that this whole thing isn't really about finding the cheapest possible house. It's about figuring out the true price of the life that comes attached to that house. It kind of forces you to ask yourself what wealth and success really mean to you. And this table, I think, lays out that final calculation perfectly. On one side of the scale, you gain this incredible financial freedom. You get way more space, and you can become part of a real community. But on the other side, you're giving up career options, big city culture, convenience, and, yeah, in most cases, comfortable weather. There's no right or wrong answer here. There's only the answer that's right for you. So, in the end, the real question isn't what's the catch. It's what trade-off am I willing to make? The cheapest towns in Canada aren't a secret, and they're not a scam. They're a choice. And they force every single one of us to take a hard look in the mirror and ask what we truly value, and what part of the conventional dream we're willing to leave behind to build our own.